Regular session for November 16th, 2017 is now called to order. You'll please join me in a moment of prayer before we get started. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this evening and the beautiful night that you've given us. I pray that you would help us to keep our hearts and minds true to the agenda at hand, which is making sure we educate children across the county well. And I pray that you would give us guidance to do so. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right, I got a couple of updates for you guys. One update is tonight, we actually have a bunch of our students at the Space and Rocket Center that it's like a night at the museum. They're going to be there for 5 nights. They're doing the cyber camp, the first ever cyber camp. This is where Governor Ivey came up and did the $10 million grant to kind of expand the facility. And so this is the first one they've had. This is going to eventually go international. But of the 30 seats, that our students got 20 of those seats. And so Mr. Perkins has been working with the Space and Rocket Center and Cyber Huntsville on this. So Mr. Perkins, you were there a little bit earlier tonight. How was it?
They're going through orientation right now as we speak, and they'll be having dinner, and they're going to get it full force tomorrow morning. So they're excited, parents are excited, kids are excited. Looks like it's going to be a really good experience. Our kids have already been interviewed, in terms of media, and so it's going to be a good experience.
So if you want to come to graduation, it will be Tuesday at 1 o'clock. So they're actually going to be there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. We've got kids from all of our high schools that applied and are there. So that is an exciting thing to be helped with that with the new program there. And also on Tuesday, I think, it was at Sparkman High School, hosted a World of Work celebration pep rally. Sherry was there, and the Huntsville Havoc has really kind of taken our special needs kids under their wing and has given them a lot of opportunities to kind of, the World of Work is a program that really helps our kids transition into career type of different occupations of things that they can help. So they actually have a little video they put together that Mark's going to play. Mark, is Mark's pulling that up? Sherry, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to.
It was a real good celebration, and the donation, $12,000 to the program. That was awesome.
Which I heard Chris told me that was double what they thought they were going to get.
Yeah. They're expecting $6,000, and then another business kicked in.
2 other businesses.
2 businesses kicked in.
It was Window World of Huntsville and Rob's Custom Body Shop.
There you go. Also pitch in. All right, rolling. Still working on
Sparkman. Sparkman.
So, but what they do, so actually at some of the hockey games, they'll come down and actually help the hockey team, specifically where they do the chunk of puck, where you put your name on a puck, you have to throw it on the ice and hit a target. So our kids will help do that. So they actually bust all of our kids in from all of our learning communities from all over the county to Sparkman for a big pep rally on there. So that's on Huntsville Havoc's Twitter, and they got a little 2-minute video on there, and we got some good press on that. So it's actually a pretty cool story. So we'll just. So congrats to Cindy Stanley and all of her team and everybody, all the teachers and everything that go in that. That was a really cool thing to be a part of. All right, so we'll get started tonight. I recommend approval of the agenda for November 16th, 2017.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the agenda. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. We'll start off with Ms. O'Bannon with a presentation of our fiscal year end-of-year report.
Sorry, I don't have any music. I'm sorry.
The money, money, money.
Show me the money.
Show me the money.
I suppose these are on. Can everybody hear me? Okay. Okay. I wanted just to share for a moment a financial update as of September 30th and how we ended the fiscal year. So overall, these are the financial statements that will be presented to the board tonight. I think I'm right in the light. Oh, I'm sorry, George. Let me get out of this light, okay? I don't want the light on me, I want it on this. You can see the ending unreserved fund balances. I hope the print's not too small on your copy, but we'll go over each of those. We'll come back to this slide. But that's what I want you to focus on, the fund balances at the bottom of this exhibit. For all fund types, it's under fund equity. And we'll talk about those in just a minute. This is the other basic financial statement that we're asking the board to approve tonight. And this just reveals what you saw this when we were doing our budget proposal, that it's the income statement, and it shows that $200 million actually goes through this school system every year, which that's not a surprise to any of you. And this is the directors and the board members, everyone gets this. This is the summary that I email to you every month. So this shows at a glance that we did very well this year. If you'll look at the general operating fund, basically that's primarily what we want to focus on. We stayed within the budget for the year, and I don't believe we could have done much better. As you see the percentages for revenues for all general fund types, and that's our state and local funds. So we monitor these on a monthly basis. So this was no surprise to me, because we look at this monthly, and it shouldn't be a surprise to the business office. But looks very good, and there's no unusual discrepancies. We compare this every month to this same period a year ago. So when I give you the July, we try to compare to July of the previous year. That way, if there's something unusual when you're looking at it, we can say what happened, what occurred. Sometimes there should be some differences significant, but most of the time not, okay? And the Fund 12, your special revenue funds, most of our title grants, or all of our title grants, are title cost reimbursement. So that's why you'll see we don't have all the revenue yet in, but you'll see we've got it set up here in a receivable at fiscal year end for the monies to come in to take care of this deficit. That's normal. That's not unusual. I want to focus. Again, you see the unreserved fund balance for general operations is $15,672,401. As you saw on this exhibit, unreserved $15,672,401. So let's talk about that for just a second, and I'll be going back and forth to this exhibit. The unreserved fund balance. It's not a bad thing that when we ended the year, it represents 1.2 months of operating expenses. So let's see what makes that up. Again, 1 month required by the state is 12.8. That's what it takes to operate the school system for 1 month. The second piece of that ending fund balance is $1 million. You remember that's approximate amount. I did round. That we pulled back in the budget amendment at the end of the year. Child nutrition had a really healthy fund balance, so we pulled back some local monies that we had sent over to them in our monthly required transfer for them. So we're allowed to do that if they're over their 1 month reserve. So we pulled that in for general operating purposes. Then the May 2017 BRAC payment that we received from the county commission, we're holding that and setting that aside until decisions are made with that agreement. And then we set aside every year, you've got $1 million that we carry over. You'll see we had that. Let's go back. Sorry. Here, the 14.7 million for last year, the prior year, the unreserved. We have some payments that are due, like October and soon, so that's the set-asides for that. And then we had some good news with Mr. Evans that actually helped Mr. Solly, and he didn't even know it. But we have not had a textbook adoption in, 2 years? So we had state textbook monies left over, and so we inquired as to how we could use those. We didn't want to lose those monies, and you can't flex them and carry them over. You're not allowed to do that. But they did allow us to apply that. That should actually say, instead of reclassified, reapplied. We were able to do that with some instructional management type software in the instruction department. So we just applied it toward that and freed up some money in our local funds. Does that make sense? So we zeroed out all the state funds. And any amount over the 1 month reserve, we can use it for any school system purpose, personnel costs. For example, we'd kind of like to see what everything looks like through this semester before we make any decisions on that, but it can be used for maintenance, contracts that may come up, a personnel cost, for example. If the state comes through with a salary increase for employees, that costs the system about $500,000 when depending on the percentage. 4% was $500,000. So we may need some of that for that. It can be used for classroom technology, programs, whatever the needs might be, or it can remain there for future purposes. I just wanted you to know. And we'll talk a little bit more about this part when we look over at the strategic plan. Okay?
The 372 can be used for technology, is that what you said?
No, ma'am, that can be used for anything.
Okay.
What we did freed up some local funds because we were able to convert the leftover textbook money and apply it to monies we had already spent on instructional curriculum and things like that. It did qualify to use from the state textbook money.
It's like for our campus.
Say we had this amount left in textbook money, you can't just go in and use that for maintenance. So we asked the state, well, what can we apply it to that we've already spent for this year because you can't carry it over? And they said, well, you can use it for any kind of instructional software, Canvas, anything like that. So
Right now, it's just sitting in the reserve.
yes, ma'am.
So we haven't spent.
No, ma'am. No. This is what's sitting in the reserve right now. I mean, in our unreserved fund balance for general operations. 15, and it'll go down by the million, but we'll still have the 14 remaining. For any school purpose. Okay, does that make sense? Whoops. I wanted to go back and talk about the other fund balances. I didn't do, this is the most important because this is general operations. And to see actually the status of where we are, kind of like the state of the schools at the end of the fiscal year. So if we go back to Fund 12, Special Revenue Funds, that includes all of our public monies in our local schools as well. But so you see that fund balance that's unreserved in the amount of $6.2 million. Does everybody see that? $6,287,115. The print's very small. Where is it? I'm at the wrong one, no wonder. See the $6.2 million on the balance sheet, unreserved. CNP again had a good year with participation and ended the year with a $3.7 million operating reserve or unreserved fund balance. So Still, CMP, the 1-month reserve requirement is a little over $1 million. That's what it takes to operate. So they ended the year with a 3.4-month reserve. So that's what 3.7 million of the 6.2 is CMP. The remaining funds in there are in our local schools. That's our public school accounts for all 27 sites. So that's what makes that up. Debt service funds, you'll notice that's in a reserved fund balance. And that's because it's reserved for debt service and can't be used for anything else. Even though the majority, most of our principal and interest payments are due March 1st and September 1st of each year, we are required to wire funds monthly. We have a monthly schedule for all warrants to our fiscal agent, our paying agent, who actually makes the payments on our warrants. So we're required to send all that out monthly. So at September 30th, that's what's sitting in our fiscal agent bank account in Birmingham. That's not our money, but that's what that is. It's set aside until those payments are due on the different warrants that we have. So that's what the 2.1 is. The last one I'll go over, we know fiduciary funds, that's your non-public booster clubs and things of that nature. But capital projects, I should have given you a breakdown on this, but if you want it, I can send it. Let me go over that with you. You'll notice the reserve fund balance for capital, and it can also be used for debt, is $50,486,000. So this is where your fleet renewal funds are also for buses. So we have $900,000 for that. We have, for BRAC funds, we have $42,126,000. So that's part of it. Then we have, our 2016 warrants that we restructured for the Owens Crossroads roof and the Hazel Green High School first floor mechanical. We have 1.9 remaining there to finish up and make our payments on the mechanical system and to start the Owens Crossroads project. So that's 1.9. Then Snyder, this is our paying agent for phase 2. They still have funds. That was our construction fund as well as our debt service fund for phase 2. So it's a combination, even though it's in a capital projects fund type. But I don't want to get into all the details because it just makes it a little bit, muddies the water. But we have 1.1 million there for Snyder, left over from construction, and for our resource advisor services that they're now doing. And we may get some credit back on that. I just don't know yet. But we haven't finalized anything with them yet. So there's that. And then also the set aside of $1 million for Snyder to make the debt payment in October. So that's there. You can actually make debt payments out of capital projects funds. Then the remaining, look on the balance sheet. Do you see the $1 million interfund payable and then the $1 million interfund receivable? The way that was handled this year was, it's not money, and we may not even use that. We may write that off because we have not transferred the money over. But if we own Snyder, we should see the full benefit of Snyder this year and not need any extra money from local funds to handle those payments for 18. But just in case, we have that receivable and payables on the book. So that's part of that $50,000 reserve fund balance. And again, that's a receivable and payable right now. The last thing, the $2.4 million remaining, is we budget all of our state capital purchase money for debt. And then we share, the general fund picks up the difference. Well, this year they were extra late in sending us 30% of our state money. We got it September 27th. Remember those required transfers that we have to make every month to meet our debt? So we sent those from general fund. So actually general fund's budget was over for debt, And this was under, so what happened, we've got 2.4 million in there that we can use starting in October for debt service. So this might be a good thing for 2018. I hope I'm making sense, because we'll start off ahead of the game by using that money first for our debt payments. And so at the end of the year, we may not use what we've budgeted in general fund for debt. It'll be a good thing. We'll see how 2018 goes, but that should work to our advantage. So that makes up the $50,486,000 in capital projects funds. That's what that represents. Let's move on. You've had enough of that, I know.
The 3.7 from the CNP, what do we think is going to happen to that? It's just going to sit there?
If we have, well, we can again, like we did this summer, when we look at our final budget amendment, if we need to pull any of that over for local fund purposes or general operating purposes, we're allowed to do that. But if we have construction projects going on, they ask that we keep it in C&P to help furnish new cafeterias or whatever might be on the agenda or capital plan. And that's why we don't pull all over that's over that amount. And, you know, we need a little cushion in C&P. We'll just wait till the summer and decide, you know, what happens to that money. We've set it aside for capital. Okay, now that we've talked about that, I just thought I'd share just a little bit about our collections this year. This is our sales taxes. I wanted you to see the 1/2 cent county-wide sales tax collections. And you will see here at September, we haven't yet received September because we're in 60 days in arrears, and we should receive that next week. It usually comes around the 20th of each month. And you can see we're down quite a bit this year. Well, I contacted Betty Peterson with the sales tax director's office, and she indicated that she had several refunds they had to settle in August. They're still, I can't call it new software anymore, having issues with the state filing process where the vendors go in and file their taxes. It's not user-friendly. No one understands it. They're auditing them every month, so they're still behind on some collections. And in August, they take out all of their expenses, estimated cost, and then when they close the year, they know if they withheld too much, so they'll send it all back to the agencies. So this accrual that I estimated, you can see I'm very conservative. More than likely, September and October are going to be up, and we can make that adjustment at the time. But that's an estimate. I had to accrue it because we must have 12 months on the books at fiscal year end. But you can see what we're accustomed to is like a 3 to 4% increase. The increase in 16, the 7, is unusual because that's when the change was made with the Limestone County distribution, taking those kids out of our calculation, the Limestone County students. This is unusual. 4%, 3% is not unusual, but you can see it's down. Again, this number for September will be higher than that, I'm confident, and possibly October will too. But I'll keep you posted and send you this spreadsheet as often as you want it or need it. So that's the 1/2 cent. And remember, it generates about $10.5 million each year for our schools district. This is the 1 cent. Same thing, it's down for the same reasons. I mean, as long as it's positive, that's good, but it's just down from like the 3% that we're accustomed to. I estimated a low number because I don't know what it's going to look like, and I never want to overestimate and report that on the financial statements. It generates about $8.5 million a year for us. Again, this large increase, 10.45%, was when that adjustment was made. Let's move on to property taxes. I went ahead and calculated you can see the 4-mil district tax is the basis for the state calculating our 10-mil match and how that works. This is actually, the 10.804 is actually our 10-mil match for this year, for 17-18. Since we only had a slight increase in property tax revenues, the 10-mil match is only slightly increases, which that's a good thing. But you can see the increase in overall property taxes was less than 1% this year. And I did note at the bottom with the 3 little stars, the 2 revenue, the 4-mil tax district and the 5.5 mil that we all know in this room is up for renewal. The tax renewal about on December 12th. So those are the 2 that will be impacted. Few other little slides.
Hey Karen, and this may be totally.
You want me to go back to that one?
Yeah. On number 3, the value of 1 mil is $1.08 million.
They base it on our district
Yeah,
tax.
so one of the things I noticed, like our 4-mil district tax versus our 4-mil countywide tax is
Mhm.
vastly different. The countywide generates almost 80% more revenue than our district tax.
Right.
What's a 1 mil comparison of like Huntsville or Madison compared to, do you happen to know their 1 mil, their value of 1 mil? Like
I-
ours is $1 million.
I should have brought it. I do have that. It's
It's a lot more.
a lot more. I was thinking it was what, 16
I don't
million?
remember the numbers, but I mean, all your business.
I have it in my
It seems like
office.
it's
I just don't
almost
have it up
triple.
here.
Like a mill in the city is
Mhm.
almost triple what a mill is here. It's kind of what I was trying to do some rough calculations based on that, but I didn't. So, okay.
I'll get it for you tomorrow. And I'm thinking 16 million, but I may be wrong because I know that's their operating reserve, so I may have those two.
Yeah. But I think
They're
16
one-
million may be their 4 mil, maybe worth 16 million, because our 4 mil is worth 4 million. So
It's quite
that's
a
one thing that
difference.
to note is that a mill in county rural Alabama is worth about a third of what a mill is worth in cities that have commercial real estate that's taxed at a higher
Right.
rate.
It's taxed at a higher
So
rate.
4 mills is not
As
4
you
mills.
said, rooftops don't bring in as much revenue, which is what we have mostly in the county. I will find that out for you. Anything else on this one? Other business affairs. Mr. Massey and some of the board members and some of you have asked, our fleet that we use with our county vehicles, how much we were saving by using this fleet that Mr. Evans has worked so hard in setting up for us, developing for us, and making sure it's coordinated. I know Rhonda Fowler keeps up with it too, works with him. So Mr. Evans was kind enough to pull together an analysis over the last 2 years so we could see what that would look like. So this is our fleet, our white fleet that you'll see out back, that we use when we're doing like an in-state travel, going, the different offices, all the central office uses that, our social workers use them, so that we have the beginning mileage and the ending, so the total mileage for the 2-year period. And times our mileage rate, if we were reimbursing these folks for travel, that's the mileage rate right now, would be $90,221. So, and this is an estimate from Mr. Evans and probably Mr. McCord, because they take care of the maintenance. Transportation takes care of the maintenance on these vehicles and the fuel for the most part. Would be $39,886. So you can see the savings of $50,000. And you notice at the bottom, we purchased these mostly from DOT, surplus property. So the sale of, our sale of surplus obsolete assets on gov.deals, it's lawnmowers, it's everything. Our obsolete assets for the past 2 years has generated $42,000, and that covers the majority of the cost of the vehicles for that same period that we purchased for our fleet. So we get our money back rather quickly because of other things that we've sold.
One of the things, with the cars, they're available to the schools also. You know, we had groups went to, I guess, Blue Ribbon or something in Orlando. They took 2 vans, took 10 people. You know, we had to pay for the gas was off. It would have been several $1,000s and multiple people going and all that. And you know, and they liked it because they all traveled together. So it's not just here, it's local schools. You know, Marinville has 2 vans this week and next week travel there too.
And you can see most people like that 2016 Camry. The business office has one of those vans, and we love her. We travel with her all the time, so we just go in together, and off we go. And you have to remember, like Mr. Evans said, this is people
The brakes are better now, Ms. Stowe.
that travel together rather in their own vehicle. So really, the savings is actually more than that.
Ms. Stowe's gotten a ride in some of those vehicles.
Really?
She has.
Well, she hasn't been in Bessie, my van.
It may have been the driver, it was Mr. Madison.
We
Like
only
there were no
make
brakes.
Guarantee of the safety of the vehicle.
Not the driver.
Driver's off.
And do not text while driving or email while driving.
Absolutely.
Okay, our outstanding debt, we went over some of this for our budget proposal just for the year, so I wanted to show you overall. These are the debt transactions that I was telling you we're required to make monthly transfers on those, so the paying agent can make the payments as they're due. So we've got our warrants, our Snyder, and at the bottom, we have the long-term notes, which I'm going to show you again. Those are our local school loans. And then the ADECA grant that helped us with the Snyder project, it's interest-free. And then those capital lease contracts payment, that's our bus leases. So they're paid out of fleet renewal. Okay? And we had just the 2 new loans this year for local schools, Hazel Green High and Sparkman High, both for band uniforms. And no other new debt. We couldn't restructure any this year because the market was not favorable to do so. But if you look at the bottom where it says long-term notes payable, the debt outstanding, $1.7 million. I'll show you the breakdown for that. That's our local school bank loans and the balances as of September 30th. Then we have the interfund loan balances as of September 30th, 2017. We added one in October for Buckhorn Middle, and there's one on the agenda tonight for Sparkman Middle. And the purpose is on here. So this is what we have right now. And looking ahead, talking about plans for the resources that are available and the many needs of the school system, you will be approving the system strategic plan, and I just wanted to note that these are our system affairs right now. So therefore, they are our business affairs as well. Just mentioned a few things in our mission: electives, infrastructure, capital improvements, construction projects. Of course, tax renewal, that should be big red. We hope that Snyder will have full benefits there this year, so that will impact our budget positively. We've started the records paperless software with personnel and payroll. We're looking at, Mr. Wilson is working on a contract now to enhance and overhaul our telephones and intercom system to help with security in our local schools and across the district. Of course, we talked about some health services, medical mandates yesterday at the principals meeting. Bus purchases, we've got to try to keep up with our fleet renewal as we have 20 buses coming off. And then we want to follow up and just go back and review our time management systems, the goals, the efficiency, and follow up and see if it's meeting our expectations with both Kronos and Synovia, where we have the real-time reporting now. So we have a lot of initiatives, and I didn't list but maybe 10% of them. But
What's the health services one?
we were just talking about the different medical mandates. They just seem to increase every year. It shouldn't impact the budget. It's just a matter of how we think and do things in the local schools.
That's in terms of students or?
Nurses. School nurses.
For
Oh,
students,
nurses.
Yes, ma'am.
for activities,
Okay.
field trips.
What is that paperless? What are you guys doing with paperless files?
Jennifer, I'm so glad you're here.
We have purchased records, and it allows us to have all of our personnel files that are lined up in our office. We will no longer have those. All of their personnel files will be kept online. So when they hire through the system, through the State Department online system, that information, when we hire them, directly transfers over into the records program because they're owned by the same company. They were both owned by people admin, and once it transfers over, the benefit to the school and all is they're able to go in and view their personnel files at the local school. So we don't have to keep making copies of everything. You know, if someone needs a copy of their certificate, it's now online for them. So it's been beneficial so far. We launched it October 5th, and it seems to be running well. Transfers are able to be done through the paperless process now, where even with when we were doing e-forms, they weren't able to be done that way, but they can now. So it's going quicker, processing personal action.
Jennifer has had to come down to tell me to, hey, let's get moving, Mr. Massey, we're ready to go. So, yeah, it does make things go a little quicker when the superintendent keeps up.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
we still check his email, and it sends out reminders
Yeah.
for ones that aren't doing, certain tasks, so they'll get a reminder. But it's also allowed us to take care of forms that were taken care of at the local school. It's put it back in the records, so the central office has access to it, such as the emergency form. So if something happened and they were at the central office, we have access to the information as well. And then it's benefited the nurses as well, because they have the forms that are required, like the Hep B form, that all of our employees are supposed to sign, but haven't been, because we haven't had a way to track it. So now we're able to have that in one form.
So how are you backing this up?
How are we back?
It's in the
Yeah.
cloud.
In the cloud?
Records is kept on a separate, the company keeps that information separate for us. It's not in-house. So it's all done through the company.
And they manage they give you guys protection, liabilities and all that. They handle all that.
They handle all that in-house.
Is this expandable, or is it just particular for HR and personnel matters, or is it like for purchase order forms that will
It is
it transition?
expandable for, what is it we use now to do professional development, STI, that sort of thing. You can expand into that. You can expand it into, where they do reviews, but that's not something we're looking at doing right now. We want to get a jump start on it, Eventually, we talked about where we can add, our daycare hires and that sort of thing into it, but right now, it's just for full-time hires that are going to be.
And we have purchase requisition, through Next Gen.
Okay, and that's all.
That we can
electronic. Is that
generate.
all pretty much paperless at this point?
It is, except those that want to do it manually, and that's fine. Any other questions? Well, Happy New Year, and we're full-blown into fiscal year 2018.
Thank you, Karen. All right. For administrative items, we begin with recommendation for approval of the financial statement, payment of bills, and the cash reports for September of 2017.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 I recommend approval of the strategic plan, 5-year strategic plan as attached.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Hey, congrats, guys.
We have a plan.
Improved your strategic plan. All right. I recommend approval of the loan request for Sparkman Middle School for repair of their field house.
Motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
He's outlining here what needs, the need for repair to the field house, and then he also lists some very concerning things about their football equipment. this loan is just for the field house, is that correct?
Yes, and Mr. O'Rear is there if you had any other questions.
There
about
he
it.
is, yes. Well, anyway, it's very concerning that they are playing in equipment that's that old, so.
A lot of work to be done there.
Absolutely.
Is there any further discussion or questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right. I recommend approval of the contracts for services as attached.
Motion?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, on item E, we're gonna, in your scrolling agenda, to omit, it's page 25 on the scrolling agenda.
Sorry.
That item is not, if you're in the personnel folder, it's listed as a separate attachment. So we're eliminating that athletic supplement contract recommendation. So we're pulling that recommendation. So for the rest of the personnel items, I recommend approval of the other personnel items and the addendums as submitted.
Motion.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, for other business, do you want to lead us?
I believe we just had a discussion. All right. At this point, we will move into executive session to discuss some student activity. And we do have a certificate for that for expulsions?
We don't have to.
You don't have to, okay. When we come back, we will vote on the expulsions and then be moving to adjournment. We have no other business on the agenda, so y'all are welcome to stay. Do I have a motion to move into executive session?
Motion. Second?
Y'all are in tandem tonight. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Pull this cord out here.